recording, and then I'll post this up after our session today. So I just want to start with, what questions do folks have about the assignment? I can share a screen if I need to, but it is, yeah, there, I've got it, yep. Do folks have any particular questions about it? How to do it? A question about consumers? Yep, go ahead.
So as far as language referring to, so my agency, we refer to person as client.
That's fine.
So a lot of our progress notes and our assessments, initially it'll say such and such's name is something old, female or adult or whatever. From there on, we'll constantly say client reports as, client states as.
Okay.
Is it okay in my formatting?
Yeah, that's fine. So you're just using the word client in lieu of a name, and that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Just because that's like fluent. I could in lieu of, I could put name in there if necessary, but yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, that's fine. So I know you folks that are already working, your agency has particular ways they want you to do this type of assessment, and that's fine. Someone did send me a psychosocial that was specific to their organization, and it was particularly for a court disposition, and it didn't focus on mental health. And because this class is focused on the DSM and coming up with a mental health or mental illness diagnosis, I said, please use our version of that. Although the jurisprudence one had a lot of really good questions in it. I said, let those questions be some of the questions you can ask, absolutely, but write it in the format that we're learning it in this class.
Right. And the recommendations for the person, a lot of that was recommended from court could go at the end of it too.
Absolutely, it's a good point.
As far as like what the client can do to help themselves.
Yes, it's a very good point.
Well.
Yeah. And it may end up that you're seeing somebody who doesn't have a diagnosis, and that's okay. Just write that the person has this set of symptoms, but it doesn't reach the level of a diagnosis if it doesn't meet the diagnostic category.
If a person, so the person that I did an assessment with, so it was what my supervisor allowed me to do is because right now my mental health screener who screens people before they have their assessment, that way the wait time is not super long.
Okay.
That they're on special assignment for COVID, so now I'm doing screenings.
Okay.
I had screened this individual, built a little bit of rapport with them for about a half an hour during the screening. And so I asked my supervisor, hey, is it okay if you sit in while I complete an assessment with this person?
Okay.
She said, yeah, that's fine. So pretty much like my supervisor's kind of there, and she chimed in a little bit just to help me move the process along. We only had an hour and a half window. So the person had reported being diagnosed bipolar 2.
Okay.
But she didn't elaborate as to like what specific, forget the word for it, like what's
the intensity, I'm sorry, whether it's mild, moderate, severe, and the subtype.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so she didn't. So how would I move forward with that?
Is that the diagnosis you're going to use?
I don't think so at the moment. I'm more along, because of what she reported to me and a lot of the symptoms she was reporting and her functioning, I would say more along the lines of like major depressive.
Okay.
And go ahead.
So when someone tells you they've had a diagnosis, you get as much information as you can from them. And sometimes people will tell you they've had all these different diagnoses. And I'm like, okay, if I put that information when you start reporting out the symptoms, I would say client states they've had previous diagnosis of whatever they've had. If you have access to a medical record and you've got information in a medical record, you then say previous medical record indicates whatever diagnosis the medical record indicates. So that you're clear whether it's the client telling you or your medical record telling you.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I specifically remember them mentioning, have you had any like kind of, she's like, I'm not manic. I'm like, okay, well, can you tell me more about like a time where you were manic? Like, have you ever had a manic episode? And they had stated, everything's been so tough and just barely on this line where I'm just kind of barely making it every day. But man, what I would do for a manic episode right now. So I thought that was funny. I was like, well, when was the last time you had one? And that's what I kind of like gathered some more information about. Like, when was the last time you had a manic episode?
Good.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So report that. Absolutely put that in your either in your conversation. I would put it earlier in the document so that whoever's reading it sees it early on. It
Mhm.
kind of gives you a snapshot picture of the individual's mental health history.
I was thinking about including it in like kind of in the middle or towards the end of the presenting problem.
Okay.
Just because client had come in requesting mental health services on a self-referral, also encouraged by her nurse at the hospital.
Okay. Good.
Um, and client previously stated that she's at bipolar 2. Um, reports no immediate or no recent episodes of mania or manic episodes. Um, however, reports that she would love to have one just to really stress.
Yes. Um, I would do your best to say how long, get a client to tell you how long ago. And
Gotcha.
particularly if it's been within the last 6 months, and then I'll ask, has it been in the last year? And if it's been more than a year, I don't usually go out any further than that.
Okay. They definitely said it's been, I think she said, it's in my notes at work.
Okay.
I left them at work, unfortunately, but I think she said something along the lines of like 4 to 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah, put
Um,
that in the report, because that
mhm,
that helps the next person who reads it track their symptom history, because sometimes people will get a wild set of diagnoses that you really can't use together, like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and major depressive disorder. I'm like, those are mutually exclusive. You don't use all three of those.
mhm,
Um, and sometimes you'll be reading 20 years worth of reports, and you'll want to be able to track it out year by year what the
mhm,
person's reported. And so having that information is golden for the
mhm.
person who's coming along in 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah, Dr. Valerie, I had a question. What do you know what a sriracha is?
Sriracha,
Yeah.
it sounds like that hot sauce, sriracha.
No, yeah, like sriracha. I remember the psychologist at my at the prison I used to work for. They used to
Mhm.
say that a lot, and I was like, "What are they talking about? Sriracha?"
No, never heard
You
of
don't
that.
know? Okay.
No.
But anyways, I'm pretty cool on the assignment. Pretty much,
Good.
I was going to use someone that I know that has a mental health diagnosis, so
Okay.
a mild case of schizophrenia. So I was going to use her
Okay.
and try to make her feel comfortable about answering the questions. So do you know how I can make someone feel more comfortable when I talk to them?
I would usually say that this is going to really help me with my learning, and really thank the person for being willing to do it. That,
Okay.
that usually gives people props for participating and giving you some assistance with your training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And if say like she doesn't want to answer like really too much questions about her medical history, I could just put patient refused to answer, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because you'll get that in a clinic as well. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Noelia or Monica, do you have any questions? Garrett or Julia, anything else?
Can you hear
Oh,
me okay?
sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I actually don't have too many questions. I just wanted to thank you for putting up the examples up there. You had one for a child
Mm-hmm.
assessment and then an adolescence, and that really helped me out because the patient that I'm, you know, this assignment on is an elementary student who I believe has ADHD, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what
Okay.
I'm working towards. But the examples have really helped me a lot, and I just
Good.
want to thank you for that.
Good. Good. Thank you. And
Yeah,
thank previous students that agreed to put their papers up there. Yeah. I'm sorry, Monica, go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't find the unmute button.
That's okay.
So I don't have too many questions. I've been trying my best, but it's really just finding like me feeling okay to do the assignment just because like physically I've been feeling like just trash. So I think I'm pretty good. I was just trying to, I think it's how I'm phrasing, like even my sentences in the assessment,
Mhm.
where, because I'm so, how do I put this? Like, because of the work and the reports that I do, I feel like it's so robotic now that I'm trying to get out of that
Yeah.
and just make it a little bit more like how the conversation goes between me and the individual that I'm interviewing. So I think I'm just trying to find my way about that and getting out of my habit of like, client said this and then I said this and then client said this.
Yeah, and that's more of a progress. Well, it depends on the organization, your kind of organization you're working for. So you don't have to write that kind in that kind of manner. As everybody gets experience with this, it flows better. Once you know pretty much what the questions are that you need to ask. I frequently once I hit the 2 or 3 years past graduation mark, I felt very comfortable just asking people what brings you here today, and then listening to their report, which then tells me about their speech, their thought process. I can observe any physical symptoms that I might see. It tells me about their memory, their ability to recount what's happening to them. And then I go into my questions after that. So it starts it off as a conversation. And then you learn to figure out what section of questions you need to ask the person next so that you get all your questions answered. It feels less like a doctor's office appointment and more therapeutic than it does like an assessment. But it takes a while to get that level of comfort with it.
Right. The only other piece besides that is really what was I gonna say? My notes being concise, because like while I'm listening, I try to do active listening as much as I can, but I feel like it's difficult trying to multitask. So it's finding the best way on how to be concise. I think that's just the most part that I've been struggling on.
Yeah, it is. And some agencies will still have paper and pencil notes for you to keep with checkoff boxes with a lot of the questions in them. And I think that's a very helpful way to do it. Particularly now that so many people work in the field and you're not in an office with a computer, and you've got to take your notes and then go back to the office to input your information into medical record systems.
Yes. So hopefully, I just wanted to hear in just to see like what other ideas, but I think it was all helpful. I think I just need to feel better to actually be able to make this happen, because it sucks.
Yeah, so hi to Stephanie. Stephanie's just joined us. How do other folks do this that are already doing this? Gary, you already do this in the community, and maybe some other folks too. How do you take down the information so that you can remember it, number one, to develop the report, and number two, get the level of detail in it that you need?
That's a skill I had to develop over the last year, especially because I started to do more intensive work that was like when I was working crisis and doing like 5150 evaluations and stuff like that. It's like super on the spot, and you can sometimes you only have time to like jot down like 1 or 2 words per sentence or like area that I would put it in. And so I try to put like a phrase that they said that reminds me about that part of the conversation, and then I can go back and kind of formulate it to like my observations, what else they were saying. If I don't have time, we do a lot of our assessments normally right in front of the computer with the person. Um, so you kind of try to like type a little bit and keep looking at them as you type. I can't do that because I never learned how to effectively type with like you're supposed to. So I chicken peck very quickly. I'm a
Yeah.
very quick typer that way, but you can't look at the person and type that way. So oftentimes I'll talk to them a little bit, make eye contact, do the active listening stuff to make them feel comfortable, and then I might go down and type a few words and then hit enter. But I found myself having to go back and forth between, because the person I interviewed, she would start talking about kind of what's going on currently to things that she's concerned about for her son. and then she would go to family history, and then she brought back some medical problems. And so I kind of was going back and forth between two different sections. So I would kind of real quick like enter in a few words that she said for this section, and then go back and real enter the few words for that session. So,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. Yeah. How about other folks? Do other folks do assessments or any kind of work where you have to input information while you're talking to
do.
someone? Go ahead.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I just got off of work.
It's okay.
Sorry, but no, I do assessments. I do. They're called the SUD initial assessments, and just like he was just stating, it's hard sometimes to type and then communicate, and then I have sometimes acrylics, so the clicking sometimes distracts everyone. But I try to engage, and sometimes I'll joke around like, oh my gosh, sorry that I cannot type as fast as we're talking, and that kind of sets the tone like I'm listening. Sometimes it's hard because there a lot of people at the first time on the initial, they have a lot of venting, a lot of word vomit. So sometimes redirecting them like, oh, okay, we'll get back to that. But just kind of how he was just saying is just, trying to do the effective listening because, at the end of the day, we do need to have everything that they state to put in the assessment. So it's just trying to find your own way to do the assessments. And also too, they don't mind if you go back and say, oh no, do you mind repeating that, or kind of do like he said, like the effective listen, like summarizing, well, oh, I hear that you said this, am I correct, did I hear you correctly?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of do the assessments. And then granted, there's just sometimes where there's just so much that there's word caps, so you have to on the spot have to limit it, use different types of words because sometimes I can only put 250 words on a section. So you just got to find your own way that you can do it.
Some organizations have cheat sheets for how to word things so that you get it in there correctly, especially if you're billing Medi-Cal, which is a nightmare.
Yes, yep, we have cheat sheets as well.
Yeah, I think Medi-Cal billing has become ridiculously restrictive. Just in the last couple of years, it wasn't like that even 5 or 6 years ago. So if you're billing Medi-Cal or Medicare, quite frankly, we've got to word things a specific way so that the claim doesn't get rejected, and your treatment plan and assessments and notes don't get kicked back by your quality control organization.
Which they get kicked back weekly.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're going to get it into straight up mental health, you're going to have utilization review everything, and you're going to have your weekly kickbacks that you have to rework and get back into the system in a modified format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I work with kids with intensive BH services and KDA and traditional and FSP, and oh my gosh. I've got it locked down now because I had so much document. Our agency created a doc manual for like every single billing code that you could use, and like this is what each service progress note should look like with this service. But with kids, it's like there's age cutoffs for certain billing codes, and I recently had, I think, equivalent to like 9 hours worth of IHBS billing that all got rejected and pulled because the person had turned 21 3 months ago, and you can no longer bill IHBS when the person's 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot about that part. I thought it was because they're youth in the TAY age until 1625. So I thought, okay, we can bill IHBS till they're 25, but that was wrong. So
Yeah.
I got a little verbal reminder of not being able to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and learning that is part of learning the mental health system in California. It's different from state to state, but every state's got something that they've got to do to get that billing, because this is federal money that gets dispersed to the state. So you have to meet those federal standards. What other questions do you have about the assignment? Okay, well, good. So I'm glad the stuff that's been online has been helpful. Go ahead.
So the hardest part for my session was that I wasn't face to face. As a part of like assessment compliance, we had to do at least some portion face to face, but right now our video conferencing format is not suitable for our actual internet speeds that a lot of our clients have in our county because we're so rural. I think our download speed is tops 25 megabytes per second.
Okay.
Yeah, real bad. And a lot of our community, mine included, my upload is like 2 megabytes per second. So yeah, right, you understand. So what happened was the agency bought this format really quickly because we needed to do teleconferencing, telehealth, but they tested it on our building's servers and our building's internet speed that we pay $1,000 a month for.
Yeah.
So the hardest part was about my assessment was that I couldn't really see my person face to face. So I lost a lot of like their appearance,
Mhm.
their movement,
Mhm.
all that stuff I'm not going to have in my assessment, basically. Um,
And I would say for everybody, if you conducted this via telehealth, put that at the beginning of your assessment. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, I had the same question. Sorry, Garrett, but yeah, I had
No
the same
worries.
question. I also had to do the telehealth.
Yep.
But I was also going to email you privately. So I did the telehealth with one of my clients, but unfortunately he just got hospitalized because he's positive for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do my assessment all over again.
Oh,
So
dear.
it was a little frustrating. Just because I was not allowed to, I wasn't I did ask for permission, but my supervisor unfortunately did not let me do a full hour
Mhm.
for the assessment. So I only got 30 minutes to do the assessment, but unfortunately with the telehealth and also to put everything together, it was a struggle. So I had to reschedule him to do the second part. But I just got a call today that he unfortunately was he's been hospitalized for COVID.
Okay.
So my assessment is not going to be completed. So I'm just going to see if another patient is willing to do it. So that's
Or,
just my little frustrations.
yeah. Or do you have a family member who would role play with you the rest of that assessment?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. Because I know, Friday's tomorrow, right? So you've got to get somebody else
Yeah.
to do it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll see anyone on my caseload, see if I can do it for tomorrow. But
Okay.
yeah, I was gonna email you, but then I remember we're gonna do this today. I was like, let me just ask her.
Yeah. So if you can't get anybody to do it tomorrow,
Okay.
just make up the rest of the information for your client best as you
Okay.
can, and just put that at the front of the assignment that you did. This
Okay.
was half an interview, and you had to create the remainder of the information.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, you
Okay.
wouldn't do this in a real assessment,
But I'll
but
try to get someone else.
yeah, we've got to get you through these assignments in these really challenging circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. If not, if I can't find someone tomorrow, then I'll just try to do the rest.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So if there's no more questions, let me switch to see if anybody watched the show, the definition of insanity that was on Tuesday night. I don't know if anybody had a chance to watch it or record it. Okay. It's a really good show. It's a PBS video, so you can now access it online, I think. It's talking about the mental health court in Miami, Florida. And that's actually where I'm from and where I started as a social worker, like I was going to say a million years ago. It wasn't that long, but it was the early 1980s when I started in mental health in Miami. And I'm just so pleased to see that around the year 2000, the courts went to have developed a system of providing people with treatment in the Miami-Dade court system, as long as it's a non-violent crime. They're diverting them from what for some people would be 30, 40, 50 years in the state prison, diverting them to mental health treatment. And that program has developed so much over the last 20 years that the number of arrests in Miami has dropped at least by 30, 40%. So what they've taught the police to do, all the police are trained in mental health crisis services. So when they see somebody on the streets, they learn how to de-escalate the situation instead of escalate it. And they've learned to look for the signs and symptoms of mental illnesses, particularly chronic mental illnesses, so that they help those folks get into treatment at the front end rather than arresting them. And they go into the prison system, which in Florida, the Dade County Jail at the time when they started this program, was the largest provider of psychiatric services in the country. It's a very large jail. But most of the people there were people with chronic mental illnesses. So it's a 1-hour show, and it's a really good model of how to do this. I already participate through the VA in a veterans treatment court model here in the Central Valley through my work with the VA. And I'm going to start talking to people I know in the legal system about mental health courts because, you know, we have this huge hospital in Stockton for the state prison system that's, you know, 800 beds are for people with mental health issues. And it's crazy that we've transferred treatment of long-term mental health to the prison system rather than to a community-based mental health system.
If I can kind of share my personal experience with that. So I worked with a 19-year-old. By the time I had got involved for support was after the person was already in jail. But they had to sit in jail for about 5 months before they could be fully deemed incompetent to stand because they had a developmental delay that prevented them from kind of speaking for themselves and processing and using rational thoughts when they're upset and many different things. But it was the reason they got arrested was because there was just it was an outburst that turned into a back and forth between family members that were under the influence, and that person was clean, but they got frustrated and went after them with a weapon at the time. But it was all because of some ongoing issues going on. So after they got deemed incompetent to stand, they also had to wait 8 more months to go to a next facility because all the facilities are so full.
Yeah.
So like a suitable state facility. I think they ended up going to, what's the one up north? Napa County. Yeah. But yeah, like 8 months sitting in jail, and the whole time they're like decompensating even more and more and more.
Yeah.
And so I was there.
Jail's not a good place for anybody, and it's a terrible place for somebody with a mental illness or developmental delay.
Yeah. So like a 19-year-old who really functions at like probably like an 11 or 10. You know, like things that I see working with kids in 5th grade. Like, he told me he was going to pay me back. I gave him some of my commissary, and now he's not, and I'm upset. And so when I'm talking to the person, I feel bad. I'm like, it's like talking to a 10 or 11-year-old being stuck in jail with a bunch of adults who take advantage of him.
Yeah.
So rough.
Yeah. So it's an amazing program they've developed, and now they've even developed an inpatient facility in Miami that does wraparound services for folks who are, as they say, the frequent flyers in the local jail system. Yeah, thank you for posting that in the chat. Because there were 97 people, less than 100 people were accounting for thousands of arrests and tens of thousands of days in the county jail. And what they really needed was inpatient custodial psychiatric treatment. And I know folks, that's not a popular thing to say, that there are some folks that just need inpatient. So they're not bad enough to be conserved, but they're not well enough to live on their own. And even with our room and not room and board, what do you call it here in California, where people stay?
Like
board and care. There we go.
Board and care.
Yeah. So it's and they're not well enough to stay in a board and care type of situation, but they're not so decompensated that they get conserved. So it's people that are in that catch-22 that you do spend a lot of time working with. Because they just take a lot of care. So it was really very interesting to see the movement of this particular program. So if you're going to go into mental health, I really recommend that you take a look at this and think about the implications for it, because as providers, you're going to be called upon to ask your opinion about, what's the answer to this problem, because we have an out of control problem in California with homelessness, and most people who are homeless have a mental illness. Most people who are in jails in California have a mental illness, and there's got to be an alternative to this rather than letting people not get treatment, essentially, in either one of those so-called systems. So
Yeah, I agree with you, but I was wondering, like, do you know, like, how to tell if a person is like faking, insanity or not? Like, is there like any signs can you get on how to know if he's like telling the truth or not? Because it was like kind of hard for me when I was working at the prison to tell if they were actually, suicidal or, they was just suicidal because they owed gambling debt at their old institution and stuff like that. Like, how can you like tell when a person's like lying to you or just trying to, what's that called when they just try to, manipulate the situation? How can you tell?
Excellent question. Let me ask the folks who've already been working in the field. How do you tell?
I think, oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I think for me, it's the repetitiveness of the symptoms that they always say. If the symptoms are still there, if the stories are straight, by their demeanor, that the demeanor just being with them, are they understanding my questions? Are they saying that they're hearing other stuff? There's gonna be those that will lie just because they're trying to get the services, but if you see them with the same symptoms, the same demeanor, the same story, there's just so many factors that we factor in when we do deem someone that has the mental health issues or underlying issues. And then I work also with substance abuse, so sometimes it's like, is it because they're self-medicating and there is something there, or is it drug induced? So it's just, are the stories straight? Are they changing it daily? That's how we normally do the assessments.
Garrett?
Yeah, I'd say that the more rapport you have with the person, the more you're able to kind of like be able to navigate whether or not they are truth telling or if they're making their situation to feel more extreme. But I think in the first interaction with the person, I think you kind of just have to take what you get and decipher as much as you can with your own kind of knowledge and instinct of the situation. And especially within the the jail or prison system, you have like safety of yourself and other inmates to protect too. So like I know like safety always trumps like the psychiatric situation in a lot of cases. So I know like in our jail, if someone says that they're going to start hurting other people, it's like there's a code for that and we respond accordingly. But I've been called to the jail 2 times in one day to assess a person for harm to self, and there's been times with the same person where I felt like they said enough words for me to say, yeah, I think this person needs to go to a safety cell. And the same person has given me information where I was like, I don't really think safety cell is an option for you right now. So it's kind of like, it depends on how well you know the person and what their normal functioning is and kind of gauge it off that.
And it takes experience. I certainly got played more often when I was newer to the profession. And some people are really good manipulators. So you will get manipulated from time to time, even if you've got a lot of experience. But I think that what Stephanie and Garrett have said about engagement is really important. Having that engagement and the rapport with the person, which doesn't help if you don't know the person at all, but learning how to build engagement pretty quickly. And then, especially if you've got like an hour to assess the person, are they consistent from the beginning through the end of that hour? Or have they changed? Most people, unless they're really, really unless they're really, really depressed or psychotic, unless they're extreme, most people are going to feel better at the end of an hour of talking to you. And so that's another thing I look to see, is this person feeling better or not? Do I have my sixth sense that this person is being truthful to me or not, which you develop over time? And it again, it's one of those things that takes practice, and expect to get played from time to time, because some people are just really good at it.
Oh, okay. Thank you you guys.
But I mean, you make a great point about, particularly in the prison, people coming up with problems or diagnoses or whatever to get them out of a particular facility because they've run afoul of a gang there, other members, or a gambling debt, or a CO or something. that's how you play that system. It's one way to get your needs met, so people are going to get really good at it.
Being resourceful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, any other questions about the assignment? Anything else? Well, you guys have a great week. I look forward to reading. I love to read assessments. I love to read assessments. So I look forward to reading yours, and I'll be turning them around really quickly because my other section is I have 2 other classes of comp exam, and their exams are due kind of towards the end of next week, and I need to get this graded so I can then read comp exam. So my papers will be turning around pretty quick right now.
Okay. Oh yeah, that you just remind me. Okay, so is grades due? Because I received an email saying that grades, you guys got an extension on grading. Like, so is it May 22nd now, or?
That's the Turlock. That's probably for the Turlock program, not for hybrid. Or did it specifically say hybrid?
I don't know. It was, I got an email from them, so I thought, for you guys too, for this, for this program too. So okay, so Turlock is different than our.
But yeah,
Okay.
Turlock's on a different schedule than hybrid is. Did
Okay.
anybody else remember that email?
I know there's an email that came today, and I remember very specifically it's saying like you have an option now to opt in for credit, non-credit grading, but
That's
that only applied
undergraduate.
for undergrad students.
Yes, that's undergraduate only.
Yeah,
The
I saw
graduate
that and I was like, what?
the graduate school is still debating that, and then we will let you know if that comes down. And there's a lot of there's pros and cons, but there's a lot of reasons not to take credit, no credit, particularly if you're getting reimbursed for classes. We're still talking to the Board of Behavioral Sciences about, does this affect licensure? We don't know if it affects licensure in other states. So there's lots of reasons to think long and hard about that. But we will give you all that information if the grad school approves credit, no credit for graduate students.
And that would be like an option, like I choose to opt into credit, no credit.
I think
right?
so.
Like,
yeah.
It wouldn't be like across the board, because I would vote no personally for being forced to take credit, no credit.
Yeah, it affects grad students so differently than undergrad. And yeah, I agree. It's got lots of ramifications for you all. So if that happens, it will be a student-to-student decision. And I think what happens is the way they're going to run is you get to see your final grade first and then decide if you want credit, if you're going to apply for credit, no credit.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Huh?
Like it's a gamble in the beginning. I mean, I kind of like seeing my A.
Yeah.
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 I haven't got this many A's in my life.
You actually designed the program for people to do well. And that's easier to do because it's a competency-based program. So you demonstrate your competencies through your assignments. So right. Hopefully that's working for folks. Okie doke. Well, y'all take care. And again, I will post this online after class, and do take a look at the definition of insanity, and have a good week.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.